Missing Live today, an elderly man helps people onto the train, but this is the last time he's been seen.
What did happen to Bill Hurd after that journey? We need your help to try and find him. Hello, you're watching Missing Live, and together we can help to reunite families and find missing people throughout the UK.
And this morning we've got great news for you. Thanks to a call from a Missing Live viewer, 14-year-old Pinder Singh, who disappeared from his foster home in August last year, has now been found and he is safe and well.
That full story a little later in the programme. We've also got a great reunion to tell you about. A mother who saw herself on Missing Live, who's now back with her daughter. It really is worth sticking around for.
Yes, that is an amazing story. Well, we're also joined by Gloria this morning by Gloria Hunniford, who's an ambassador for Age Concern.
Good morning.
What's really striking, Gloria, working on this programme, it's not just young people who go missing, is it?
No, it's not. May I first of all say, by the way, that to start a Monday morning with such good news as you have is just terrific and shows the value of what you're doing. But what is very frightening about some of the figures when you get down to it is that when you eliminate, teens, those young adults, nearly half of the people who go missing, half the adults in this country are over 60. And actually, we're very bad in this country about looking after the elderly.
OK, well, you're staying with us this morning and you'll be talking to us about that a little bit later. Yes, you're staying with us because two of our stories today touch on exactly that issue. Just how can a physically healthy old man seemingly vanish? This is the very puzzling disappearance of Bill Hurd. This is 83-year-old Bill Hurd. On the morning of the 16th of June last year, he boarded a train from where he lives in North Wales. Police are now trying to find out where he went and what he did on that day.
You'll see as soon as the door opens, Bill comes into sight, and you can see there he is, the gentleman with a white hair and white beard. You can see he stops and he lets everybody else on the train first before he gets on, and he goes to offer assistance to a young mother with a pram to offer to lift the pram up. So this gives a very, very good sort of picture of Bill and the type of chap he is.
Wendy is Bill's only daughter. She's struggling to cope, not knowing where her dad is.
It is very difficult. Every day I think about him, more than once a day, because everything reminds you. He's very gentle, a real family man. I don't ever remember us doing anything except as a family.
Although they're from Kent, they were always especially fond of the Welsh countryside.
We've always loved this part of the world. We always used to come here for holidays. My parents loved walking around Wales.
When Bill and his wife Joan retired almost 20 years ago, they moved to Dolwyddelan. It suited them perfectly.
They immersed themselves so much into the village life and they loved it there, and it's a very friendly village. They wanted to spend the best years of their life, if you like, together.
But just a couple of years later, Joan fell seriously ill. For 6 months, Bill dedicated himself to caring for her.
He was very good, really, looking after her. He did all the cooking, did all the housework, quite resilient in that way. He looked after Mum, did all her personal care.
But Joan died in 1995. Bill was left alone and had to rebuild his life.
He was always very self-reliant. He was able to look after himself. He wasn't lost. You get on with your life and you make the best of what you can.
Over the next 10 years, Bill coped as a widower by getting involved with village life in Dolwyddelan. He'd always been a keen walker, and the North Wales landscapes also inspired him to paint. He met Judy and Robin at the village art club.
Bill was a very talented artist, he really was.
Yeah. Beautiful pictures he did, the landscape around here.
And this one is a charcoal and chalk portrait of yours truly.
Absolutely marvellous.
Bill's always been fit and healthy, but a few years ago, in his early 80s, he started showing the signs of dementia.
He was all right in his own environment, in the village, doing things like he would normally do. He was fine, he could remember, you know, to go down and get his paper, and everything was fine. But if you took him out of that environment or did anything that was a little bit different, then he would get confused. We'd speak on the phone twice a week, regularly, on a Sunday and a Thursday.
On the 19th of June last year, Wendy called her dad.
I couldn't get any reply, and I knew that that was very unusual because he never went out anywhere when it was getting dark. So I rang the next door neighbour. He went up and he couldn't see my dad and he couldn't get him to hear me, so he let me know that he couldn't see anything and he didn't know where my dad was, so that worried me.
She immediately drove over to his village.
I've got a key to my dad's house, so I went in and realised that he wasn't there.
In her dad's sitting room, she found a clue to how long he could have been missing.
I knew his routine and I knew that every morning he'd put his radio times that he had onto the day that it was. The radio times was on for a Monday, so and this was now Thursday, so I knew he'd been missing probably for sort of 3 days. That was when I phoned for the police.
Bill has been missing for 3 days. The police know this could be serious.
We started a search initially in the area, checking in the garden to make sure he hadn't fallen. We did a full check of the house in case he had fallen in the house, and then we couldn't find him there.
Then search and rescue teams are called in.
It's a very rural area, to say the least. There's lots of hills, lots of forest areas and streams, so it is quite a treacherous area to search.
But darkness calls time on the first day of the search, and there's still no sign of Bill. Coming up, the discovery that on the day he disappeared, Bill caught a train from his village to the town of Betsycoed, 20 miles away.
This is where we believe he was possibly going on the day, because we can only assume that he was going to pick up this repeat prescription, which he picked up every 30 days.
And there is more on Bill's story later in the programme, but do you recognise him? Perhaps you were on that train with him. Remember, he could have travelled pretty much anywhere in the UK. So if you do know anything that could help with the investigation, call us now. The number is 0500 700 700. Calls from landlines cost nothing, but call charges from a mobile could vary considerably.
Now, look carefully at this picture and see if you recognise this man. His name's John Price, and he's older than he looks in this shot. He's 24 and has been missing from Darlington since February the 12th this year. He's a big fella, 6'3" and stocky build, and unlike this photo, he was last seen with shoulder-length hair, usually parted on the side. He was wearing a dark zip jacket, dark trousers and white trainers. Now, a lot of people are worried about John, so if you know anything about where he might be, then the number to call is on your screen. And John, if you happen to be watching, then we want you to call a confidential service for advice and support. It's Message Home on free phone 0800 700 740.
If you're watching and you wonder if your calls really can make a difference, then what follows should leave you in no doubt. Do you remember Pinder Singh? He featured on Missing Live last week. He's the 14-year-old who went looking for his real parents. Here's a quick reminder.
28th of July 2008. This 13-year-old boy is caught on CCTV. He's just run away from his foster home. Pinder Singh first became known to police when he was found at a London temple 2 years ago. He could only speak Punjabi and didn't know where his parents were. He was moved to Kent to stay with a foster family, but last July he disappeared. When he didn't come home, his foster parents became worried. Pinder is tracked boarding this bus in Bromley in Kent. Over 2 weeks later, they discover more CCTV.
We've got sightings of Pravinder travelling in the Hounslow Central area by bus. And the last confirmed sighting we have of Pravinder is on a bus in that area on the 18th of August.
The great news is that after we showed Parvinder's case last week, missing people got a call and Parvinder has been found. With us now is Detective Inspector Alex Phipp, who led the search for Parvinder. Amazing news. Just tell us a little bit about what happened. A call came in, didn't it, to missing people. He'd gone to look for his real parents.
Pravinder had gone to look for his real parents, disappeared for 4 months. We were looking for him around Hounslow, and he turned up in South Wales. As a result of a call to missing people, they contacted us. We got in touch with the person who'd made that call anonymously, not wanting to be identified, and South Wales Police assisted us by going, and it was actually him, and he's now back in care.
OK, so tell us what he was doing and how do you know how he got there?
We don't know how he got there at the moment. Obviously, it'll take some time to find that information out. But it appears that he was quite frightened about being sent back to India without his parents. He thought he was going to get deported, and clearly he wasn't going to be. Children of that age wouldn't be sent home without somewhere to go to. So.
OK, so he had gone missing before, hadn't he? So do you think he is going to be safe now? What do you think?
I think it's going to take a bit of time to find the right place for Pravinder to be staying, where he's properly looked after, and within a sort of culture that he understands and feels safe within. It's really difficult for us to get, and for social services to find people with the right ethnic background to look after children like Pravinder.
Amazing as well, the location of where he was found, because he'd gone a long way, hadn't he?
And I think that's because we'd been looking for him quite carefully in the area in which he had been seen around Hounslow, and that may have frightened him off, so he moved us to an area where he wasn't known.
OK, so now he is safe and well. Thank you for that, and thank you. You see, your calls do count.
Yeah, top result with that one. Perhaps a call from you could bring an equally positive result to this case from Scotland. This is Jim Gregg, and he's been missing from his hometown of Musselburgh near Edinburgh since March the 7th, a little over 2 weeks now. He's 69 years old, 5'8", medium build, with balding grey hair, and he often wears a dark-coloured woolen beanie hat. He'd been with friends at the Coach and Horses pub in Musselburgh's High Street, and he left at around 7 p.m. But where did he go after that? No one seems to know. But think hard, were you there early on that Saturday evening? Did you see anything that could help the search for Jim? The number, as always, is 0500 700 700.
Let's see if we can get a bit of help from Jim's son, Kevin, and his daughter, Tracy, who are here with us now. Morning to you both. Thanks very much for coming in. Just tell us a little bit about when your dad went missing and how you found out he'd gone missing.
Well, I actually found out because I was worried that I hadn't heard from him. So I went in and there was mail lying and stuff that were in his fridge that had gone off. Then he had a newspaper, his newspapers were dated till the 6th, from the 6th. That was the last one that was in the house.
Right, OK, Kevin. When you first heard he was missing, what did you do? What have you done?
My sister really called the police. It was a few days after he actually went missing. I went to his house, expecting to bring him to my house for his dinner, and he wasn't there, so it became a bit more of a concern.
Yeah, he was a real creature of habit, wasn't he? Because he had gone to the pub that night. So tell us a little bit about what he used to do.
My sister might be better informed
Go on
than
then,
me.
Tracy, you tell me.
Yeah, well, basically on a daily basis, he would get up in the morning, go to the local shop for his newspaper, rolls for his breakfast. Then he would go out a wee walk and then go to the pub for a couple of pints, go home, have his tea and watch TV.
So it's kind of pretty straightforward, isn't it, his daily life?
Yeah.
So is it unusual that he would do something different?
Definitely, definitely.
So where do you think people should maybe look out for him?
That's the puzzle, because I used to just walk local, that we really don't know.
And is he quite distinctive? He always used to wear this hat, didn't he?
Previous to that one, he used to wear like a flat cap.
Right.
But I lost that a wee while ago, so I ended up with the beanie. He always had a hat on.
If perhaps he was even watching today, what would your message from both of you be to him?
Please get in touch. Let us know that he's safe.
How concerned are you, Kevin, about this disappearance?
It's quite a concern because, as you say, he is a person who you kind of know where he's going to be. It's a total mystery, so we really don't know where to start looking, basically.
OK, well, maybe people who are watching today can help you. Kevin and Tracy, thank you very much for coming to talk to us about your dad. If you think you can help to find Jim, please give us a call. The number is on your screen right now. It's 0500 700 700.
Now, more on Bill Hurd. He's a widower and suffers from dementia. He's been missing from his home in Wales since June last year.
It is very difficult. Every day I think about him, more than once a day, because everything reminds you.
That was Wendy, whose dad Bill has been missing since last summer. Police hope he's still alive, somewhere in the country, but where?
The Ogwyn Mountain Rescue Team call in dozens of their trained searchers to comb the ground.
For the professionals, that's their job. They're doing it day in, day out, and they know this stuff.
We'll start off by going horizontally across the contour. We searched around the forestry with about 40 to 50 people involved in searching for him. There are a number of paths that they do go up onto higher ground, but the ground as you get higher, you move out of trees into more open moorland. We've searched path tracks and trails. We had the use of North Wales Police Air Support Unit. They flew through various locations.
You live on a bit of adrenaline, really. You just go with it to some extent because you haven't got time to think. You're almost on a roller coaster, really.
I wanted Mark for the GPS, Jed.
While the mountain rescue search the rough ground, police officers make inquiries among the people in Bill's village of Dolwyddelyn. It isn't long before they have some news.
One of the neighbours, I think, had seen him on the train. They were able to get the CCTV footage.
This is the platform you can see Bill stood on as the train approaches. You'll then see him let 3 ladies on first before he steps on himself. He goes to offer assistance to a young lady with a pram, and you can then see him get on the train.
Police inquiries reveal Bill got off the train at Betsy Coed, 2 stops up the line from his home village.
We knew that his regular cafe to go would be the Tanland Bakery, so we've contacted staff there. They confirmed that Bill entered that on that day.
Marion Jones works in the bakery. She remembers serving Bill that Monday.
I didn't really know him very well personally, but he did come in often. He was quite quiet. He was very forgetful of some things.
She remembers that day Bill struggled to recall even the name of the cake he wanted.
He asked for a cake of this shape, and I named every single triangular cake we had.
It seems Bill's dementia was worse than anyone had realised, but officers still needed to work out why Bill went to Betsy Coed in the first place.
I'm assuming that he's gone to get his prescription from the doctors that are in Betsy Coed.
The surgery is just a mile from the main high street. It's about a 20-minute walk.
This is where we believe he was possibly going on the day, so I can only assume that he was going to pick up his repeat prescription, which he picked up every 30 days or thereabouts, and he was sort of more or less at that time when he was due to go and pick a prescription up.
But checks reveal Bill never made it to the surgery and the prescription remains uncollected. But where did Bill go after he left the bakery? Coming up, Bill spotted walking along the main road just a few miles from his home.
Somewhere along this stretch here, I noticed a man walking, and I noticed that it was Mr. Hurd, who I recognised because I used to serve him in the shop in Dolwyddelyn where he lived.
And more on that story later on. Terry from Missing People's here. Terry, what's been coming in on the phones?
Well, it's been really good. We've been quite encouraged by the calls last week. A couple of quick cases last week. For example, Elena Zargova. She's the one last seen at Highgate Tube Station. We had CCTV of. Lots of calls about her. 12 possible sightings, several from the north of England, and one in particular was someone that thinks they saw her on holiday and recognises the voice as well. So
that's interesting, actually, because there was a possible link to abroad as well, wasn't
it? That's right. So we're hopeful something might come.
Brilliant.
There.
Okay.
We've also got Joyce Wells. She's the lively granny missing from Sussex. We'd hoped for more calls, but we have had some potential sightings, including Southampton and Brighton.
Okay.
We do want more information about her.
So that's fairly local to where she was gone missing from, but we still need more, obviously, on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other interesting one is Michael Bell. He's the very long-term case, 26 years missing, last seen at Isle of Skye. He'd be 55 now, and we have had quite an encouraging response from him, actually. Quite a few calls around the West Midlands area, and even this weekend we took a very detailed sighting, quite a recent sighting, so hopefully we're looking.
Brilliant. I think we can see his picture now, actually. I mean, this is going back to 1983. It's not the greatest picture because obviously he would have aged significantly from there, but it's the best we've got at the moment, isn't it? But you're still getting calls in on that, so it's encouraging,
We are having quite a lot on that one, and
excellent.
Last week 500 calls, over 500.
Brilliant. Excellent. Well done, Terry. Thank you.
Now imagine if your mum disappeared without a trace while you were away. Well, that's what happened to Shahira Noordally, and we brought you the story of her and her mum last year. Since then, there have been some amazing developments. Here's a reminder of how it all started. 18 months ago, life was straightforward for Zinat. Studying for a doctorate at York University, she'd often return home to Manchester to visit her mum, Shahira.
We were on the phone constantly. First thing in the morning, I'd call my mum, or if I'd walk into uni, I'd be calling my mum on the way. She's my best friend.
But in November 2007, Zinat's life was turned upside down. Her cousin, who is staying with Shahira in this flat, rang to say her mother hadn't come home.
My cousin was a bit unnerved by the fact that my mum wasn't at home. But she was like, OK, fair enough. She waited a couple of hours. But then it was getting later and later into the evening and she started getting a bit worried. So she called me, and my mum never stays out, especially when it's dark. She doesn't like going out when it's dark. It got to much later in the night and we decided to call the police.
Sergeant Tunnicliffe is leading the search for Shahira, and today he's going back to where she lives.
The plan today is to go and revisit the caretaker, who was the last person to actually see her, and re-interview him, see if he can give us any further information regarding possible whereabouts.
She just went out one day, and I've not seen her since.
Did she say anything when she walked out?
No, I just said, how are you doing, Muff? Just cheerful and everything. She said, yeah, I'm all right, and she just went out,
Meanwhile, Zinat threw herself into her own investigation. Whenever possible, she returned to Manchester to do her own searches.
She just lived across the street.
Where?
Yeah, she just lived across there.
In the morning, yeah, she walk around 10, 11 o'clock here, yeah.
Yeah. And she'd go and get a newspaper. And she'd come and get some vegetables and things.
Yeah.
This was every day she was here, so it's obviously they remember her, and it just makes me feel a little bit more hopeful,
5 months after Shahira disappeared, Missing Live ran an appeal for her.
In Manchester, a young woman is searching the streets for her mum, who's been missing for over 6 months.
This was the best opportunity to kind of put my case out there and sort of make people aware.
Almost immediately, there was a massive response from the public.
We had sightings all over the country. Obviously, people phoned in, genuinely believed them to be the person we were looking for at that time.
In Manchester, Sergeant Tunnicliffe started to wade through the information.
I was very optimistic because some of them seemed very, very genuine, with really good lines of inquiry.
Then, on the last day of the series, there was news of an extraordinary development. A woman had called in saying she'd lost her memory and thought she could be Shahira. Sergeant Tunnicliffe got straight onto it.
Andy, good morning.
Good morning to you.
I mean, this is encouraging news if it does turn out to be her, but how long would it be until we find out if it's her or not?
We're building some trust at the moment. This woman doesn't want to give us her location.
Could Sergeant Tunnicliffe be close to finding Shahira? Coming up, what news will he have for Zeenat?
I remember being there listening intently and, you know, and then suddenly I just started crying like crazy.
We'll have the rest of that story later, and also Zeenat will be with us in the studio.
Police in Yorkshire urgently need your help to find Claudia Lawrence. This is her. She works as a chef at York University in Heslington. She hasn't been seen since she left work last Wednesday afternoon. That's March the 18th. She's 35 years old. She's 5'6", slim, with blonde hair and brown eyes. Now, she was wearing a white T-shirt, blue jeans and trainers. Where can she be? On the phone now is her dad, Peter. Thanks very much for joining us. Just tell us a little bit about when she was last seen. Where was she?
Hi, Louise. The last sighting that anyone had of her was on the CCTV as she was on her way home from work last Wednesday afternoon. I spoke to her Wednesday evening, and her mum spoke to her Wednesday evening. We believe she was at home, but she's only got a mobile, so I mean, there's absolutely no definite proof of that, but we do believe she was at home on Wednesday evening.
OK, and how was she when she spoke to you? Everything was normal, was it?
She was fine. She was in good spirits. She arranged to meet me on Friday evening.
And when did you realise that she'd gone missing?
Well, a friend of hers, Susie, telephoned me on Friday to say they were concerned because they couldn't get hold of Claudia, and you can always get hold of her on her phone. And she'd arranged to meet Susie Thursday night but didn't turn up. So I rang work at the university, and they said they were concerned because she just hadn't turned up for work on Thursday morning.
And you must be really worried. What do you think may have happened to her?
We've just no idea. She just totally disappeared. Her phone's not operating. The police have done a massive search. They haven't been able to find anything.
Tell us a little bit about her. If people are looking for her, what's she like?
Oh, as you say, from the photograph, she's about 5'6". You can see she's got long, fairly light brown hair, always smiling like she is on the photograph. She would have been casually dressed if she set off for work on Thursday morning. And if she set off then, she would have had a very small rucksack with her chef's clothes in.
OK, I appreciate your time, Peter. Thanks very much. Best of luck with your search. Now, this was only 5 days ago, so he was just telling us. Do you have any idea where Claudia is? If you know of anything that could help this urgent investigation, call us now on 0500 700 700.
Now, more on the story of Bill Hurd, the old man who went missing from his home in North Wales. He's been spotted on the road leading from his village, and there's this CCTV footage as he was getting onto a train. And there are about to be yet more clues.
Police need to find someone who's seen Bill.
A flyer went out with his picture on it to all of North Wales officers, and they will have distributed to shops, train stations, bed and breakfast at places where he may have been staying.
5 days later, there's a breakthrough. The local milkman recognises Bill from the poster campaign and remembers seeing him walking away from Betsy Coyd along the busy A5.
I was delivering milk, as I do every day, up and down this road, so that's when I noticed him walking.
This sighting was at around 2 o'clock, about 3 miles north of the village.
He was between here and you see the sign where the army training camp, he was somewhere along here.
2 hours later, and 5 miles further down the road, someone else spots Bill.
I was driving home from work I leave work at 4:30, so I know that it takes about 20 minutes for me to get to this point. And somewhere along this stretch here, nothing really out of the ordinary, but I noticed a man walking who definitely wasn't dressed as a walker. He had on a sort of greyish coat and he was carrying a carrier bag. He wasn't walking particularly quickly, didn't look confused though, wasn't walking really slowly. And I noticed that it was Mr. Hurd, who I recognised because I used to serve him in the shop in Dolwood Ellen where he lived.
2 confirmed sightings of Bill on the A5 miles from his village. Could someone have stopped to give him a lift? No one else came forward.
We then had to broaden the search. Increasing the area perhaps to sort of 200 square miles now. Teams coming from all over Wales. We've also brought in SARDA, which is search and rescue dogs. They have the ability of covering a huge area, and obviously they can pick up a scent from a long sort of kilometres away.
And the expertise of the Forestry Commission is also needed. They know the terrain better than anyone.
We've had contractors working in these areas for a significant amount of time now. Basically, most of these sites are coming to a close now. But, you know, these are the areas, you know, and the maps we've handed to you.
That's right, yes, I've gone.
Rescue, you know, the sort of search that you've carried out.
Yep.
Hundreds of miles are searched across North Wales by dozens of highly trained teams. It's now 9 months since Bill disappeared. There have been no further sightings. But Wendy, his daughter, refuses to give up hope of seeing her dad again.
It is very difficult. Every day I think about him, you know, more than once a day, because everything reminds you. There's always that little sort of seed there that maybe there's some miracle there that he could be somewhere.
Robin and Judy lost a friend as well as a fellow artist when Bill disappeared. They're keeping his place open in the art group, ready for when he comes home.
The question always, whenever we have an art class, the question is always asked, is there any news of Bill?
You just wish and wish and wish that you could do more to help. Where he could have gone that day, goodness knows.
So you can see people still waiting for Bill, an elderly man who's confused and worried. Where could he be right now? Well, with us is Claudia, who does a lot of work on behalf of older people. It's a difficult story, this, isn't it? Because there he was, he's been seen, and yet he's just totally disappeared.
Actually, it absolutely illustrates the frustration, because here you have Bill, a striking-looking man. I mean, a lot of elderly people feel that they're invisible, but here, a man, you can't overlook him. Lovely manners. You could see him on the train letting, you know, women go ahead of him. Well looked after within his family. Daughter Wendy, you know, on the phone all the time. It's not like he's neglected. Well respected within the community. You know, has interests. He paints. It's not like he's sitting in a forgotten room, you know, somewhere, not doing anything, not part of the community. So it is very hard to understand, and so one can only, you know, and I'm not medical, obviously, one can only come to the confusion of dementia, where there's no rationale in some cases, and people do very strange things. I mean, I have a member of my family is suffering from it at the moment, and it's just the unusual, it's out of order, it's out of sync. But as a generality, we're not good in this country, or as good as other countries, in looking after our elderly people, and bearing in mind that people are living longer. It's a growing problem. But, you know, in countries like Spain and Italy, elderly people are still very much part of the family, you know. Mother is the matriarch of the family, so there's a greater presence, I think. And certainly when I was growing up, you know, my Aunt Vi lived over here, and my Aunt Myrtle down here, and my granny somewhere else. There was a community, and of course a lot of the communities have broken down now in the cities. So there isn't that sort of hands-on, on a daily basis aspect of looking after the elderly.
Given that they are a large percentage, actually, of the people that go missing, what do you think can be done to help and make a difference?
Well, I do a campaign every year called Safe, Warm and Well, and it's exactly that. You know, we all know somebody's elderly, whether it's a relative or a neighbour. You know, make sure that person is safe. Make sure in the winter in particular they've got a hot drink or something like this, and just a cup of tea and a chat. You know, what frightens me is the fact that people who are not actually that old, you know, maybe just marginally over 60 or marginally over 70, not old in this day and age, are lonely. Sometimes they say we don't see anybody from one weekend to the next. It's the loneliness.
That's another point, loneliness, and also many of them can suffer from mental health issues. Do you think
course.
they're reluctant to go and see people as well?
Well, yeah, I mean, there is a stigma, of course, attached to that. I mean, particularly with the older generation. You know, there are many stigmas about getting help or even getting benefits that are due to the elderly. I mean, that's the other thing. Oh, no, I've managed all my life all on my own and I'm not going to claim for that benefit or this benefit. But I do honestly believe that we as a community can do a lot more to make sure that the elderly are safer. And a bit of advice, or, you know, if you're keeping an eye on your neighbour and an eye on your relative, you will know if they're suffering a bit more from, you know, a mental condition, from dementia. You'll know that the order of things is not right. And you will know, I think, how to get some help for that person.
Okay,
but that's not to say, I mean, I think in this case with Bill, it's very mysterious because, you know, he is very much part of the community, and that's hard to understand.
Very interesting. Thanks very much for coming to talk to us with your thoughts.
And I really
there.
hope there's some good news on Bill.
Fingers crossed. Thank you. Those contact details, again, if you want to get in touch with us, the number is, as always, 0500 700 700. And if you want to write to us, our address is Missing Live, PO Box 63814, London N1 1HF. You can also email us as well, missing.live@bbc.co.uk.
Back now to our amazing reunion story. Zeenat spent months searching for her missing mum. After an appeal on this programme last year, someone called in thinking she'd recognised herself. Greater Manchester Police need to find out if it is Shahira.
The woman's lost her memory, and at first she wouldn't say where she was. Sergeant Tunnicliffe needs to find out if she really is Shahira.
I had a number of phone calls with her, trying to build up a rapport, trying to build up trust, because she was quite clearly not prepared to say where she was in the country.
Sergeant Tunnicliffe has kept Zeenat up to date on all his conversations with the woman.
I just got a random phone call from the police. I remember being there listening intently, and you know, and then suddenly I just started crying like crazy. This was the first time that I actually felt hope.
Finally, the woman's prepared to speak to Zeenat on the phone. Could it really be her missing mum?
It was her voice. It was just like the biggest sigh of relief. It was just like a ton of weights coming off you. And I was crying. I was there with the phone in my hand, just tears streaming down my face. To hear her voice again was just... Sorry.
Zeenat and Shahira have now been reunited.
I know that in 2007 they didn't spend Christmas together. I know in 2008 they did, and it's that kind of thing, which is the nice side of our job, to see, you know, a really happy outcome to what could have been a really sad story.
Shahira is now being looked after in sheltered accommodation. Her loss of memory has been traumatic, but she's making good progress.
Just incredible news, really, and we're thrilled that Zeenat is with us this morning, along with Dr. Ayan Panja. Welcome to you both. Thank you very much. Zeenat, I was here last year talking to you. We were looking for your mum. It seems incredible she's back. What happened? The last day Rav spoke to the policeman, he said there was a call in. What happened?
Yeah, it was actually the day that I was here last, and I was in the studio live, and I got a call from Sergeant Tunnicliffe, and he said, you know, if you can come up to Manchester, and we've got someone who's, you know, is claiming to be your mum on the phone, and if you'd like to just, you know, have a chat with her and see it and just confirm that it is her. And it was very surreal. It was very.
You've been looking for her for months.
6 months, yeah.
And how is she now? What's the story?
No, she's all right at the moment. She's in a new place in Newcastle, and yeah, she's very well. You know, it's been very hard for the whole family, really. But she's dealing with it amazingly.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, Ian, is this common amnesia? What can cause it?
Well, the commonest reasons for amnesia are brain injuries, really, so sort of a blow to the head or stroke or alcohol abuse, any kind of insult to the brain, and less commonly psychological trauma like stresses or underlying anxiety, so a whole host of reasons.
There's a number of reasons. And what would be the best advice for a family to cope with someone who's suffering from it?
Well, I think the things to look out for are persistent memory difficulties, beyond normal forgetfulness, because we all get like that from time to time. So if that's the case, you really need to seek help, and the best port of call is your GP, who can refer you on to specialist treatment.
I mean, the difficult thing, I guess, from your point of view, and we talked about this at length, is there seemed to be no warning as well when she went missing, was there?
No, not at all. Like, it was very, very sudden. I just got a phone call from my cousin, and she hadn't taken a bag or anything. It was very unusual circumstance for her to leave the house and not take any sort of ID with her or anything like that. So it was really sudden, yeah.
That's quite an extreme case, isn't it?
It is, very unusual, and that's probably one of the least common reasons for amnesia, the kind of psychological reasons behind it.
OK, and how are you seeing your mum? You talk to her virtually every day, do you?
Every day on the phone, yes, and she doesn't live too far away, so I get to go back and see her often.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. It's just great to see you again. Thank you. If you or someone close to you is experiencing mental health issues, there is a BBC website that might be able to help you. There are clips, articles and advice. You can find them at bbc.co.uk/headroom.
Now, missing people need your help to find Anne Simpson. This is her. She's been missing since September the 26th, 2004. She'd now be 64 years old. She's 5 foot 1 inches tall, slim, with shoulder-length silver hair and brown eyes, and she usually wears rings on all of her fingers. She was last seen when she left her home at 11:30 p.m. in Ingold Mills near Skegness, and her family haven't heard from her since, and they're very worried. She left without a medication that she needs for her diabetes. So if you have any clues, then a call from you really could end her family's heartache. And the number to call is 0500 700 700.
Time for a quick final update with Terry. Terry, we've had some news, haven't we, on Bill Hurd, who we were just talking about earlier with the Gloria Hunniford, the 83-year-old.
That's right. I mean, it's been really encouraging because we've actually had a really good response. Over 40 calls about him already and about 15 possible sightings, 4 of which are actually really recent from this weekend. What we don't know is that, we don't know where, because they come from all over the country. We've had London, Plymouth, North Wales, Lancashire. So we're looking into the more detail to try and link them.
He's quite distinctive as well, isn't he? If people look out for him, he's pretty distinctive. And, we saw him getting on a train, helping people on the train. A very charming old man, isn't he?
That's right. I mean, hopefully not just what he looks like, but the way he is, that people will remember him and be able to call us with information.
Fantastic. Keep those calls coming in. Thank you, Terry.
And before we go, a quick reminder of the cases that we need your help with. First, it is Bill Hurd, the elderly man who's missing from his home in Wales since last summer. There were several sightings after he first disappeared, but now we need your help in the search.
Yes, keep those calls coming in. Jim Gregg hasn't been seen since he left the Coach and Horses pub in Musselburgh High Street in Lothian on Saturday, March the 7th. Now, his daughter and son Tracy and Kevin were here a bit earlier. You heard they're really worried. They really want your help to find their dad.
Also really worried is the family of Claudia Lawrence. She's 35 and hasn't been seen since she left her work at York University in Heslington last Wednesday afternoon. She's 5 foot 6, slim, with blonde hair and brown eyes.
Another one for you. Where is Anne Simpson? She was last seen leaving her home in Skegness at 11:30 on September the 26th, 2004. Her family says they miss her and they just want to know that she is safe.
And John Price, he's 6 foot 3, has been missing since February the 12th this year. He's 24 and was last seen in Darlington, but where is he now?
Yes, if you can help with any of those investigations, call the number. It's 0500 700 700. And just one thing coming up tomorrow. We'll be here at the same time and we'll be talking about Gillian Batt. She went missing from Worthing in West Sussex and then turned up of CCTV a month later in Carlisle. That's on tomorrow.
See you then.
Bye-bye.
We'll head to the auction next here on BBC One with Homes Under the Hammer.